Switching gears now, Nick Reiner, the son of the late Hollywood director Rob Reiner, is requesting access to his more than $1.5 million trust fund to help pay for his defense in the murder of his parents. Rob and Michelle Reiner were found stabbed to death in their Los Angeles home, as you may recall, back in December. Nick Reiner was arrested just hours later, and he has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder. In a petition filed Monday, Reiner's civil attorneys said, quote, Nick loved his parents and he is devastated by their deaths. But the facts of what did and did not happen to them are not at issue in this trust litigation. According to the petition, the 32-year-old was entitled to half of the trust when he turned 30. But the lawyers say that did not happen. Joining us now is NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris. Misty, there's a lot to parse out here. Nick Reiner's initial attorney, to remind people, was Alan Jackson, who then withdrew from the case in part because he wasn't getting paid and Reiner couldn't afford his services anymore. Now he's got a public defender for his criminal charges. What would Reiner use this money for?
So what Reiner has said in this petition is that Alan Jackson is actually waiting in the wings, ready to be tapped back in as his criminal defense attorney for what presumably will be his upcoming trial, and that he needs this money now more than ever
to pay Alan Jackson.
In order to pay Alan Jackson and have that vigorous defense.
Well, that makes sense. And Misty, if Nick Reiner receives this money, can it legally be used to pay for his defense? I'm curious what the law says around that.
Yeah, so there's some sticky issues here because there's what's called the Slayer statute in California, which says that you cannot financially benefit from killing another person, and the standard is intentionally and feloniously. So the question is, Nick Reiner's charged with this crime. He's pled not guilty, so there is no disposition on the case. He has not been found guilty. So can he access this money? And as you read in your intro, Kate, regarding some of the quotes from this petition, what they're arguing, Nick Reiner's team, is that this is an irrevocable trust. It's one trust. It's not part of the Reiner family trust and all of the assets that would be distributed to him and his siblings. It's a trust that was set out and that he is entitled to take money from when he turns 30, half of it, and then 35. So nothing, including the Slayer statute, applies according to their arguments in this petition.
There's another piece of this, though, because the filing claims that Reiner never received what he was due at age 30 because of the trustees' concerns over his, quote, competence to manage a trust. I'm not sure who the trustees are in this, but do those concerns have a bearing on what happened?
Yeah, so this lawsuit says that those trustees did not have that discretion because there was no dispositive finding that Nick Reiner was incompetent at the time. So that's a legal word about his competency. But this lawsuit goes through a whole host of issues relating to the trust, who was in charge, and the question for the court is whether or not the trustee was supposed to release these funds. Remember, when there's a trust, there's somebody who's in charge of it who ultimately distributes the funds and sometimes has discretion.
And just quick,
that's the question.
Do his siblings have anything to do with any of this?
Well, so with respect to this, the argument is no, but remember, there's that other issue, the Reiner family trust, which would hold all of the assets of the parents and the family, and that's something that they could contest and say, well, we don't think Nick Reiner should have access to those funds.
But that's a separate pot.
Separate pot, according to this lawsuit.
Thank you so much.